Welcome to the Log Time Podcast. This time, we're going back to the past to talk about Dennou Coil, a clever mid-2000s anime about augmented reality and literal ghosts in the machine. So, without further ado, let's talk about being an indentured servant to your grandma and ghost viruses.
So one thing I didn't realize about Dennou Coil, like when I started watching it, was that the opening was done by the whatever the Japan equivalent of Evanescence is.
No shit.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. That's just a gag.
Oh, come on!
Fuck you. You can't do that. Fuck you.
But you know
I
what?
trust you. I shouldn't, but I trust you.
But that's what I thought when I heard it.
It is a very similar register and and it has the wispiness of whenever she's like trying to sing softly, but like
like the start of Bring Me to Life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but it's kind of like that throughout the entirety of the song.
Yeah, the music itself is way more like Experiments Lain kind of style thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's not like the same style. I mean, it's the same style, but it's a different genre, or it's slower or something. I don't know.
For the OP, at least, I can understand like where you're coming from. If we're talking about the music for the rest of the show, no, no.
The music for the rest of the show is so mid-2000s anime, like
Dennou Coil itself feels so extraordinarily 2007.
Yeah.
And it absolutely bleeds every bit of like anime from that era. Like it exudes that. And it's incredible how something Yeah. And I mean like obviously it should feel that way because it is from, 2007. But like man, it's weird to like come back from watching and doing like seasonal podcasts with you all and then diving into something like this and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, watching something in 2020.
We went through a fucking time loop.
Yeah, watching something in 2020 and then time traveling back 13 years. But it was like, for me at least, while I was watching it was weirdly nostalgic. I was like, oh, yeah, that is what anime used to be.
Yeah, my response, I guess, was more of, oh, that's right, this is how 2007 anime is.
It's hard to tell, but mine had positivity in the voice.
now, some of my favorite series, like for example, like Shakugan no Shana came from 2006, 2007.
Oh, that's true.
So, like, I can't really rag on 2007 as an era that much. I don't know. This one just felt 2007.
That's what I was feeling the entire time I was watching it.
Yeah, it's the use of the colors. It's the soundtrack. It's just the way that the tropes present themselves within the show. Everything is that like mid-2000s anime, which I was stoked for.
For me, it's the video quality. It's just really overly grainy.
That's true. Yeah.
See, like I was watching that and I went into the first episode and it had such an incredible grain over the characters and I was like, oh wow, this is a really neat visual effect for this show. And then I was like, wait, no, this is just 13 years old. That's a feature.
I was like, if you watch like Paranoia Agent, it's the same way.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like you went into this and you're like, oh, Megalobox, hell yeah. I remember somebody doing this kind of style. It's throwback. No.
But it's like, that's just how this thing is. That's just how it was done.
It's how it be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about this show whatsoever going into this, but
I had seen a snippet of episode 1, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what initially turned me on to it, because I was looking at this and I was like, that's like really clever, just like the whole like augmented reality glasses, especially for like 2007. That's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of clever.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I look at the poster and it's so bright and colorful and cheery, and the poster is so much more colorful and bright than anything else in the rest of than the rest of the show itself. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's gonna be, school kids get into Google Glass shenanigans. And I wasn't expecting the kind of existential dread that it goes into. Like, at points, and it sounds weird to say this, but at points it felt like we were getting into territory of like Shinsekai Yori.
Mm-hmm. I had the same thought.
Like, no kidding.
Yeah, I literally thought the same thing as I was watching.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh.
Like, luckily it didn't
getting
get
into
that
Shinsekai
dark.
Yori shit here.
But no, like it's kind of like levels of existential crisis where it's just like your brother's been dead the whole time. You were just looking at a fake, and it's like, what? Wait.
So I mean, like, it wasn't even just that kind of dark stuff to it. It was more how it took an initially lighthearted premise and continued to make it like so much more increasingly up its own ass and so much more complicated, and then also darker as it went.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, dude, like 5 episodes ago, we just watched an episode about a kid like growing sentient facial hair that almost underwent a nuclear holocaust on itself. And that was a real goofball fucking episode.
Yeah,
what are we doing now? Why do we have to get to this?
It's funny too because like they'll even reference the goofball episodes in the dark and like dreary shit later on, where it's like, what are these illegals? Why do they keep changing? It's like, you remember the beard ones, right?
It's like it's stuff like that, and those episodes that are definitely, just kind of one-offs to add some flavor to the world that made me so acutely feel, oh wow, this is 2007 anime. Because, I don't want to say those episodes are like filler or anything, but like we hit episode 14 and it was the recap episode, and I'm like, oh my fucking god, I'm in a time capsule. You don't see this shit anymore. This is saved for like a recap movie.
For a recap episode, the fact that throughout all of the episodes prior to that, you see that kid's pet in all these situations and scenarios, and you're like, who is that? What's going on with that? And then you find out it's just this asshole that's just like, I need photographic evidence of all my bullying.
Yeah, like it is a clever like lens through which to put a recap episode.
Well, I didn't really like it. But
I mean, I didn't either. I didn't pay that much attention.
I mean, it was a recap episode, but like I just thought it was like a clever little way of introducing it.
There were parts
Matt, there were parts of it.
There were parts of it that were okay. But most of it, I was just like, okay, well, and especially after coming off the last 2 like one-off episodes, after like getting to that like a story, like not an arc, it came to like not a climax either. What's the word I'm looking for? It came to like a stopping point in the story where I was like, oh, like a cliffhanger, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm excited to watch more. And then we got the like string of like 3 one-off episodes, well, 2 one-offs, and then the recap.
Mm-hmm.
Which, they did add some flavor, and there was some details in there that was important. But after I got done, I was kind of like, okay, that's not the reason I like this show, though. It was kind of one of those things where this is what I figured the show was going to be like, was those 3 episodes. And that was what I was afraid of. I didn't want the show to be that. So I'm glad not all 26 was like that, because I would have, who knows what I would have done. And I don't know. I liked the overarching story, and then it just took me out of that. And I was like, okay, well, that was okay, I guess. But let's go back to that, because I felt that was way more interesting.
The overarching story is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is very convoluted and has a lot of moving parts, but when it all comes together, it makes for a pretty satisfying piece.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there were definitely times when I was watching it, I was like, that's a major ass pull, and you are saying words that don't mean anything, but I mean, that's fine. I've gotten this far along anyways. I'm invested.
Was there any particular example that you're talking about, just for reference?
I think just kind of how we got to the end and how they were kind of talking about, being stuck in the kind of like, coil spaces, and how some of it was like tied to emotion and heart and things like that, and feeling the pain and the overarching sadness and shit. And it was really interesting to kind of see how they tried to overlap these very emotional human parts of it that weren't quite as much of a focus as it was like setting up the technology of like the cryptographer stuff, and making people like have the glyphs and all that shit. I don't know, it felt like they kind of took the power of heart and emotion thing and took it to a really like wild other extreme end of it.
Yeah, it's like it makes sense within universe, because it's a whole thing of like, well, if you have the special tech on your glasses, then like it's literally your brain is being transmitted across the net, so like you can actually interact and do things with your emotions. At the same time, it's like the way that they go about getting to there, I'm just like, man, that's probably could have been explained better.
Yeah, and it's not to say like that it is bad conceptually speaking. Like I think overall it's very genuinely interesting. But yeah, I definitely would agree with you in that I feel as though some of the larger concepts could have maybe been a little more forthright or forthcoming in how they were, addressed to the audience.
Yeah, especially whenever they like, for the last like 6 episodes, they're trying to do the thing where it's like, oh, we're just dropping bombs for the final act of this show. But it's like, some of that shit would have been nice to know like earlier on. And just a mild explanation.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I understand they wanted the climax, like you said, but
yeah,
I definitely felt like the last like 2 or 3 episodes, like that was a ride, but I felt like it was a ride for, not to say that this wasn't interesting, by the way, but I felt like it was a ride for the wrong reasons. Mostly because there was so much information being thrown at me. I was like, okay, hold on, I can't process this.
Oh my god!
Just let me like get the ideas here, like little bit by little bit, instead of like, okay, we're doing this now. Oh, it's because of this, and then like the characters are all explaining it in between each other, which that's fine, but I don't know, like it feels like, especially compared to the rest of the pacing of the rest of the anime, it just felt like really out of place, and they made it all work in the end, but it was just, I don't know, it felt, especially the last couple episodes just felt like overwhelming, and I was
the last few episodes were a definite info dump, and it was odd where you would go from info dump to like some insane action of just like shit going down in the city, and then just more info dumpy. And I thought that was it was very strange but I like, by the end of it, it works. It's just, I don't know, like I feel like it could have been done just a little bit better.
Something that kept nagging at me throughout the show is that like I was happy to keep watching it, but this show's it's 26 episodes, and God Almighty, does it feel like 26 episodes? Like this show fucking dragged, and the fact of the matter is, considering a lot of the one-off episodes and some of the information that is scattered throughout stuff like that, it really feels like this show could have probably been condensed into a one core in a way. But at the same time, like now that I'm saying that, though, like considering the pacing issues of the last 3 episodes or so, I kind of feel like maybe it's just that some of the one-offs could have instead been budgeted to more effectively divulge some of the more important information that we needed.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the 26 is fine. I think that part is okay. I feel like they just needed to take the information, they needed to take the pieces of the show, and they needed to even it out. Like, just flatten it, like, basically.
Yeah, take a lot of that info and sprinkle it more so in the previous episodes in order to make it a little less just like massive big hits every episode. We're gonna hit you with another one.
Yeah, that way you could have turned it into more of a Shinsekai Yori scenario where it was like, it built on each other, and then instead of because it kind of felt like Dennou Coil was going to do that, right? Like it felt like it was going to build and build and build, and then you were going to have this climax at the end, like which it kind of did that, but it kind of went too slow.
I mean,
and then
sort
too fast.
of.
What it did is it would like build and build and then relax with a couple of the one-offs, and then it would build and build and then relax with a couple one-offs and then build and build.
And even then, you know, with some of the mainline episodes, you know, I mean, for instance, with the episode where, Amasawa brings the whole hacking club to go dig up shit under buses to, like, you know, threaten them to essentially, you know, be her henchmen and such. Like, there was some decent info in that, but, like, really all the story rich stuff really came in like the last like handful of minutes of the episode, and I kind of felt like that's how a lot of the mainline episodes were. You know, it felt like we had a lot of stuff going on, but nothing of any real consequence really happened until like the end of it.
Yeah, it seemed more like, so for like not the first half, because that would equate to 13 episodes. Well, no, that's probably about fair. We had for like the first half of the series was like kid hijinks with sprinklings of something more, and then then they kind of like switched over to like, hey, these kids are no longer just having hijinks, like they're dealing with some shit.
Yeah.
And from there it tries to build into that final arc where like everything goes down.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, I mean, I understand kind of the balance of that, because, I mean, like, part of this is obviously, you know, friendships between, you know, kids and how, you know, children, especially in a weird technological future, kind of process the world around them and how they interact with that. And it's all very well and good. And, like, I think it's very interesting. But, Matt, kind of to go back to your point of, you know, you had the one-off episodes and you were afraid that that's what the show was going to be. I almost feel like, you know, the show would function really well if it kind of stuck to one of the two things. You know, if it was, you know, just a kind of hijinks sort of thing, or if it, you know, was leaning a little more into its kind of dramatic elements. The goofy kid shit is good to, you know, kind of break up some of the heavier elements, and it was good to have that sense of levity. But at some points it just felt like, you know, what is this show really wanting to be? Like, what are you really fully trying to establish? And I mean, like, by the end of it, it obviously, like, gets it all together, but it just felt shaky at parts, I guess.
Yeah, and I assume you're talking about shaky, not in terms of, like, plot making sense, but just, like, the structure of it.
Structure, right?
Yeah, structure, not the plot. The plot's totally fine. It just felt like, you know, thematically or, you know, tonally speaking, it felt like it had some difficulties, like, you know, kind of really hitting its stride, you know, because we can only get so many shots of, you know, Fumie spanking her younger brother and then going to, oh my god, ex-girl is dead from an intersection accident, a traffic thing.
And you have this other child who is harboring all the fault for this, even though it's not his fault. And so there's like this massive discussion of guilt and like the loss of a loved one and all this shit. And it's like, we just got back from spanking a kid.
Or it's like, how many times is, you know, Yasuko's little sister gonna like scream poop at someone?
Unchi.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. Like, I thought at first, like, maybe I just didn't like some of the characters, but now that we've really talked about this, I feel like maybe that actually stems from the structure of the show more than it does the characters themselves.
Yeah, because I think we have a really good, believable cast of child characters for the most part, anyways.
Yeah.
Some of these kids are way too fucking smart and way too emotionally intelligent to be grade schoolers. Like,
yeah, for them to be in
do not believe that for a fucking moment.
Yeah, I was not like that in 6th grade.
Like, I don't know, man. But, you know, I think that it is a good cast. What were you going to say, Matt?
I was going to say, I think regarding the emotional intelligence there, I think I was willing to, it's kind of weirdly, have a suspension of disbelief in the show. Just be able to go, okay, well, maybe. Like, who knows? I don't care.
I did shrug it off because I thought that this show was being very clever in some ways, where, like, you see that the people that have that have mostly adopted the glasses technology, even though culturally it's being used by everyone. The people who wear them all the time are kids. And so the kids having the hacking skills makes sense because they're constantly interacting with these, and and they have way more information on them than like the adults do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so because of that, I like attributed that going for any other semblance of intelligence that these kids show. I was like, maybe they're just a bunch of smarties. And I'm like, okay, they're mature for their age.
Well, I guess having access to a pool of technology might create that environment.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. Yeah, that would make sense. I guess it was kind of interesting too to see like how specifically it was all kind of just catalyzed into just, you know, Daikoku City itself, because like wasn't it supposed to be like kind of a testing ground for the technology? Because I mean, like it had been around for like for at least a decade or so, but it hadn't been widely implemented worldwide yet.
Right.
And Daikoku City was just like one space where it was more largely used.
Right.
Yeah, because this was, if I remember right, this was the initial city that had them, because the people that engineered them came from this city. And so like everything started here. And so everybody was way more like knowledgeable about this compared to the rest of the world. But then eventually the rest of the world did adopt it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think in that too, it was kind of interesting to see the sort of disconnect between the usefulness of the glasses technology, because, you know, in some respects, you know, there were instances to show how it was like helpful for like medical technology and like, you know, information tech and cybersecurity and a bunch of other shit. But it's also so interesting to see how much of the population of the city had not adopted the glasses technology, even though it was like a central hub for it.
Yeah, you would see like... I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt it.
Yeah, you're good. Like, it was interesting to see specifically like how these kids took this technology that is really powerful and could have a lot of, you know, strong applications, but a lot of people aren't using it. And so it's interesting to see how they kind of take that and just fucking run wild with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, a lot of the adaptations of the technology that you see, granted, this is a story from a child's perspective, but a lot of the ones that you see are specifically, like, entertainment purposes and various other things like that, rather than what you would expect, which is like, oh, I can easily see all the train lines and when they're arriving, or like any of that other stuff. But you do occasionally see like adults with the glasses on. Oftentimes, though, I thought it was interesting that whenever you saw the adults, the glasses were basically just like lifted up on their forehead, compared to every kid had the glasses on. And I was like, honestly, that's kind of true to life. Like, that foretold a lot of things, because like I have nieces and nephews that know an iPad way fucking better than me. But yeah,
so, I don't know, for it being a show in 2007 about this kind of emergent like technology and kids, and not just that, like emergent augmented reality technology.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see how they kind of approach this from a, you know, from a like a societal or like a cultural standpoint, and see how it would like fundamentally change how this whole generation of kids would grow up and interact with themselves and the world around them. It was really, like, really cool in that respect.
You even have it towards the end where all the kids get their glasses removed, and they're like, I literally have no idea what to do. They're like, I can't even make a phone call home. And it was just kind of uncanny for me to see that, in comparison to like seeing some of the kids nowadays, in which like you take a phone away and they're like, what did y'all do back in the 90s? And I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of like went out into the woods and threw rocks at things.
Yeah, the show is definitely good at expressing the way, you know, a society would interact with that kind of technology, and having another generation come in with the, you know, with this technology and being able to use it in a different way than the previous generation would. I thought, for sure, it was interesting. Yeah, it was definitely. I like how they kind of sprinkled that in with the plot. I know that's kind of what the plot was based around, but like just sprinkling those aspects in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I think that was what was maybe the most interesting part of the show for me. Like, I dug the plot, don't get me wrong, but I thought that was some of the most engaging stuff, just to see this kind of vision of the future from 2007. Because I think it takes place in like 2026 or something like that. It's not that far ahead of us.
Yeah, it was one of those things where they wanted to do like the distant future, or the near future, the near future, the recent, near future. One of those things where it's like, what is technology going to be like 10 years from now, and that kind of thing. Whenever people pop that question,
like I honestly did sit there thinking while watching this, like, did someone watch this and then consider the Google Glass? Like, was this part of an inspiration for that?
Honestly, whenever I look at the the Microsoft, I can't remember what it's called, but the augmented reality glasses that Microsoft has, honestly, most of the tech that they show off is literally like the shit that happened in the show, where it's like, look, there's a pet dinosaur I have, and like all this other stuff, and I'm like, it's very, very uncanny how that kind of has like, you came from a fiction, and then fiction suddenly becomes the reality.
Yep. This is true.
Also, I will say, on a different subject, Amasawa-san rocking that Marnie outfit from Pokemon way before Marnie.
Marnie being
the one girl from Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Oh, the Sword and Shield. The girl.
I still haven't played Sword and Shield, so that just like that whooshed right over me.
Okay,
but I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah. It is interesting though, because like you look at her outfit, and I'm like, that is absolutely like a late '90s, early 2000s outfit. That is like the punk kid that refuses to conform outfit, and then like you actually end up seeing her character, and you're like, yeah, that's okay, yeah.
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 I will say also, like, this show ended up having a lot larger cast than what I thought it would. And honestly,
there were
like,
a lot of goddamn kids.
Yeah, and honestly, like, they all had their moment to shine, which I thought was really cool. They did a decent job of balancing like this larger cast.
Yeah, and I kind of liked the fact that there was also this kind of sounds hollow now that I think about it, but I do like the fact that some of the adult characters got involved too, like the grandma. Like, I thought that was just like a really good addition to the story.
She's such a gremlin. I love her.
Yeah, I loved her, but I also absolutely loved that it was this character that, she's retired, and like both her and her husband were really into tech at the time. So you have this like super techie grandma, and she's like actively like messing around with kids and like playing practical jokes in a virtual world. I'm like, that's great. I love this character.
You say messing around with kids. I say literally blackmailing children to do child labor.
Tomato.
Megabot is a menace.
I also love, like, you suddenly realize at the end of it, because like you had all these detectives in her agency, and then you find out number one, the first dude was her own son, and he just says, "My mom has a lot of info on me."
Yeah, it's something else, man. She's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, that was an interesting part of the show for sure. I was just really shocked that they, like, I don't know. There's not many. I don't want to say there's not many shows, but there's very few shows I feel like I've seen that have older characters as kind of like a spotlight character.
Very important to the story like that.
Yeah, it's just very, especially in a show about technology. That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. A show about technology, and it's a show where it's a bunch of sixth graders running around.
Yeah, for sure. I think we are all forgetting, obviously, the best character in the show, who is Densuke. Densuke should have just had his own spinoff. It's his best dog, best boy.
He is best boy.
I would die for Densuke.
I would die for Densuke. And it's sad that Densuke died for us.
Yeah. I think that we all really do not deserve him, and his sacrifice. He went to go be with Cyber God.
Yeah.
And we'll miss him greatly.
He went to go hang out with Grandpa and Cyber God, and they're making one heck of an album.
Every time you guys mention the dog, but I actually thought like the whole like there's like the whole thing where like Megamass is making the glasses, but then there was like a organization before them, like the Coil organization, where they designed like the Coil notes. I actually thought that was like really like a really cool like plot idea.
Yeah, for sure it is.
I love that it was this thing where it was like two competing companies like Microsoft and Apple, and then one of them went out of business, and so the other one grabbed all of their resources and IPs and then just fucking buried them. I was like, that's a really interesting way. And the fact that since they're the only individual corporation that has grants from like the local government, they have sway over the local government.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, just the whole e-space technology and everything else like that, the whole concept of digital spaces that exist in like physical locations, but also are like buried deep within there. Like, if either of y'all have at all played like the Mega Man Battle Network series, I kept getting like shades of that throughout this whole fucking show. And it was just such a cool way to see how they like merge those spaces together.
Yes.
It was so fucking cool.
And how that they would have constant formatting, because you would end up with these older spaces where it's like, oh, there used to be a building here, but like while the physical space was updated, the virtual space never got updated.
Yeah, kind of like, again, to go back to the buses and shit. The little fucking shit. Daisuke, I think it was. I don't know, the little kid that was always screaming all the fucking time. Daichi, that's it. I knew it was a Dai something. But like I remember he was walking along one of the buses and his foot fell through like a wooden plank.
Yeah.
And he took off the glasses and it was like the geographic data for this place has not been updated in a very long time.
Yeah, he fell through the floor in a bus simply because he was looking through his glasses and didn't realize, oh, it's wood and it rots.
Yep.
That was very cool. I loved a lot of that. Like, and the fact that there were so many little details like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really had an interesting world, like, in this anime. Like, I don't feel like I say that very often, but there's an interesting, like, concept they had behind this show, and they made it something, which was really cool.
They did, and it wasn't just like the broken down spaces in and of themselves. Like, that's cool enough too, but like it's small little environmental things, like the mist and like the fog that comes around.
Yeah,
certain spaces that have not been updated in ages, and like the small like distortions in reality when stuff needs to get fixed by the searchies and shit.
I loved that. Like you sometimes would see the pets, and the pets wouldn't update correctly. And so you would get this like VHS kind of like lines through them, and I was like, some scan line shit. Yeah, the scan lines, and I was like, that's fucking good. And then you also had moments like with like the mist and the whispering that came with it, where as somebody who went into programming, I'm like, actually it does make sense to develop a system to be like, okay, if you can't find it, here's how to access it. Be like, oh, okay, just follow the mist and it's an easy indicator, especially for something that's supposed to be older and needs to be updated. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking clever.
It's so interesting how they took all of these tech systems and made them into something so like mysterious almost, and almost like supernatural in a weird way. Like it was I don't know, dude. They managed to work with technology in such a way that, like, I don't think I've ever seen another show interact with it before. Like, never have I really looked at like a dead internet space in a show or in a world and thought, oh god, that shit's cursed, or that shit's haunted,
Yeah.
or like there is something like not right going on there.
No, I
the
think
worst it would be is like a weird underground like cult sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just something genuinely like, again, I can't say anything else but fucking supernatural going on there.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the haunted thing, because the null entities and the illegals were, I mean, for all intents and purposes, from a story perspective, they were ghosts.
Yes.
And they would be like kidnapping children in the night, and that was the whole story about the mysterious like Michiko, was that, she was a ghost that would suddenly reach out and absorb you into this other alternate space. And people even mentioned like this other alternate space that she was supposed to belong to. They even stated it was the other side, as if it's the other side of life, the afterlife.
Yeah, the afterlife.
And I was like, that's really cool to develop a story in which like you have all these supernatural elements, but it's science fiction.
Yeah.
And to explain that away in such a way that makes sense, like, well, yeah, the glasses, depending on what version of the glasses that you have, if you have the like, what was it, the Imago?
Imago was a certain like thing or a skill, something like that.
It was like a weird like piece of technology that was left over that occasionally activates, and when it does, not only are your eyes like adapted to the glasses, your actual consciousness is, and so like you can actually interact with things mentally, and it's like, oh, okay, then it makes sense that someone can just fucking like take you and absorb it out of you over the internet.
Yeah, man,
that sounds terrifying when you put it like
doesn't
that.
It? There's so much scary shit in the show. Like, they have done such a good job of developing this really fascinating world. And, like, I'm kind of with you, Matt. It's hard for me to sit down and think of the last, like, environment or just general concept of a show's world that has felt so unique, so very much its own thing. And I've been thinking about the show ever since I finished it up. And I've been, keeping thinking, God, I would love to see something else in this universe. Mm-hmm. Or, like, I would like to see something with this general idea applied in a different way.
Yeah.
Because I think it has just so many very cool pillars of how it works as a world and how it works as a technology. And I think it would really lend itself well to, I don't know, like a procedural crime thriller, or to, like, I don't know, a Log Horizon-esque thing. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, dude. I think there's a lot of cool shit you could do with this.
Especially some of the more scary stuff, because, like, you think about, like, Amasawa-san and her recovery was they put her in her own virtual space so that she can slowly adjust to, oh, my brother died. Mm-hmm. But then halfway through the recovery process, all of a sudden the company goes bankrupt, and the guy gets, I think the guy dies, right? Yeah. He dies, but he dies for her. It was that whole thing. But like, yeah, the company goes bankrupt. The technology is no longer being funded, and so like she is going to basically either be trapped in this space with, and just her subconscious is constantly there, or she's going to come back into reality and just suffered major psychological trauma. Like, that's a fascinating setup for a character, and the fact that and how it plays out for her throughout the series is like really interesting. And so I think you can just in that one small idea, you can start to see other ideas that you might be able to have with this technology in this kind of like virtual space versus reality.
Yeah, it's so fucking sick. It's maybe one of the coolest augmented reality applications I've ever seen in fiction.
Hands down, especially when it comes to like all of anime, I think it's strong enough to say that this is probably the best adaptation of augmented reality that I've seen in anime. Yeah. In the rest of fiction, I might be able to make that case as well.
I mean, to be fair, like in anime now, you don't see a whole lot of augmented reality because most everything that is working with stuff like this is just VR stuff at this point now.
They instead of going for AR, people just went for the VR or isekai route.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I understand why we don't see a whole lot of it now. And I mean, like, realistically speaking, augmented reality is not a, hugely implemented technology right now. Anyway.
No,
like, I can't remember the last thing that, like, I really saw that prominently uses AR for anything other than a gimmick.
No, the Glass, that's what it's called, I think. The Microsoft Glass is the AR thing. They are really pushing for it, and they're showing how good the technology is, but they're pushing for it in a way of like, look how good your business will be now that you're using this, instead of like actually trying to like market it to consumers. And so yeah, you just don't really see augmented reality a lot nowadays. The big hotness is virtual reality.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, anime won a Seiun Award for Best Dramatic Presentation.
Don't even know what those awards are, but
I
see that on Mal as well.
Yeah, I had that pulled up on Mal, and I was like, okay, well, cool. Japanese Speculative Fiction Award for Best Science Fiction Works. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah. I really like this show. As much as we like started with our complaints for this, I did by the end of this, I ended it and I was like, that was a lovely show. Like I enjoyed myself.
Like I have some quips about like maybe the pacing and the structure and stuff. Yeah. But altogether, it is a very cool, complete package.
Also, we didn't really talk about it, but like, I personally was okay with the pacing for a lot of the later episodes. I was not okay with the mid-2000s, we're going to end in the middle of a scene cliffhangers. Where it's just like, wait, there's something wrong with you, cut to credits, and it's like, what, fucking what? Like, if I had watched the show as it comes out, that's inexcusable. To just end in the middle of a scene and just be like, alright, wait till next week.
I mean, you gotta keep that drama train rolling somehow.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think it was a pretty neat show. I'm glad I didn't hate it like I thought I was going to going into it.
You thought you were going to hate it?
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was going to be a bunch of kids goofing off with glasses shit. Like, and that just did not interest me at all. But I'm glad that they made it into something because it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's anything that I would readily go back and watch again, but it was a good experience to check it out.
Yes, I think that it is one of those that you should watch, but I think once you've watched it once, you're good.
Yeah, I don't need to go through all that again.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I got it once. I'm fine.
I think it's something you should watch at least once. But yeah, yes. I just wasn't a huge fan of the execution in the end, but it's still a good show. I like the plot, so
yeah,
very interesting.
Like if you're looking for something that is, speculative fiction, and you're definitely into the like mid 2000s aesthetic of a lot of anime, this is probably gonna be up your alley. But if you're not really on board with a lot of that stuff, it's probably gonna be a bit of a slog for a bit. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, having like the main sort of antagonist for the series just constantly being like, "Hi, I'm Sachi," it's very good.
The searchies are great.
Yeah, in a very, very kid voice. Just be like, "Hi, I'm Searchy," and they're just fucking blasting you with a laser beam.
It's another one of those things that is a very weird juxtaposition tonally for this show that I'm just kind of, at some point I'm like, okay, whatever.
It's kind of like the...
Dennou, take the wheel, I guess.
It's kind of like the robots in Metal Gear Solid 4 that sound like cows, and you're like, fucking what?
Yeah.
I kind of saw the search thing for the first time, and I was just like, okay, well, that's weird.
There
were certain times where I saw it rolling up in a scene, and I was like, "Oh my god, no, it's gonna happen!" And the kid will just stand there horrified, and it goes, "I'm searching." And I'm like, God, is this like a slasher horror film?
It is funny because they'll roll up as if they're fucking Jason, and then all the kids are acting like it too. They're like, "Oh no, oh shit," and then just this tiny little kid voice, "Hi, I'm Searchy."
I'm gonna fucking blow away all your allowance money, you little shits.
Hey, those glasses that probably cost you the same amount as an iPhone? Yeah, I'm about to fucking destroy them.
God.
Yeah.
It's a good show. Go watch it. Dennou Coil. No, that's all I got.
I'm good, dude. I think I'm all Dennou coiled out.
All right. Sounds good.
Well, thanks for joining us for this one. Maybe we won't have one that's as existentially weird next time.
You just cursed it. Okay.
See, that was the point though. I want us to have something real bad next time.
No.
Zach, you do know that we're doing mystery garbage next.
I want us to have something real bad next time.
No.
All right. Well, hope to see y'all next time when we figure out what the hell that is. Blame Zach. Bye.
Blame me. Bye.
Thanks for listening. As always, you can find all our podcast, articles, videos, etc. at thebacklogers.com. Our intro-outro song is The Bear by Shell in the Pit. You can find on Spotify as well as Bandcamp. And we'd love to hear from you all either in the comments on our site or any feedback you want to leave us on whatever podcast platform you like. iTunes, Soundcloud, or whatever podcast platform that shows up on Google Glass. And as always, we're on Twitter at @the_backloggers, so pull up a sit and log and stop by for a bit. Thanks again!